Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Games Up podcast. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and I am joined, as ever, by Lewis Crawford.
Hello there, I'm here.
Hey, you are.
Yes.
Happy episode 100, my man.
Episode 100.
Episode 100.
So many wasted hours.
It took us 4 years, where most podcasts take 2, but we did it, and we'll probably keep going. Also, thank you loads and loads to all the people who responded so great to our E3 predictions. Hello to the new subscribers who jumped on board. Thank you for your support. That means the world on a big episode like that. So thank you very much. We're going to do a slightly odd episode this week because it's episode 100. We've got to do something. So we're going to go through the news as usual. We'll talk to you about video game stuff. And then we're just going to kind of shoot the shit and talk a little bit about why it's taken us 4 years to do this and what the podcast is now and like where it's going and all that kind of jazz. Because fuck it, we've got to indulge ourselves once in a while, right? That being said, let's start the show. Your first piece of news, which is a little bit old but still interesting, is that Microsoft are hiring for a AAA studio in Santa Monica. Now, the likelihood is that this will be a next-gen studio, because at the minute, like, setting up a studio and then building the IP and then all this other stuff, unless they're kind of building a studio around a project, which seems unlikely, it's probably going to be next-gen. Although it's cool to see Santa Monica getting more development talent. That's really becoming a hub for games.
Yeah, definitely. And like as we say, this is specifically a hiring for like almost a studio manager. It seems like this is very much a project and a studio that hasn't had, it's completely new. This is like the very start of the studio. So yeah, it seems likely. I can't imagine that they're going to be having a game out in even 3 years. So we're probably talking something in 2022. If it's completely new studio. Regardless, like. So probably next gen, depending what Xbox wants to do with that. Yeah,
I could see it being next Xbox launch stuff, but yeah, it's certainly not any kind of immediacy with it. Your next piece of news is that Nintendo finally announced their online system for the Nintendo Switch, and it seems a bit lacking, although it does cost a lot less. The system, if I am right in thinking, it's $20 for the year, right?
Yeah, that's right. So
$20 for the year, so a lot less than most services, which will cost you a fraction of that per month. So a lot less than most, although it does seem to kind of suggest it's going to be very, very stripped back and basic, which kind of hints that we're still not hearing anything about Virtual Console, probably.
Yeah, so the biggest thing really is that they're saying they're going to have the NES games for free and that they'll be releasing more over time. But it is quite lacking in terms of there's no kind of voice, voiceover system. It's all through the phone still. So it's not quite what people wanted. Hopefully, as you say, the virtual console will happen eventually. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. To clarify, they're adding support for SNES games like Virtual Console, but not directly as Virtual Console, if that makes sense. Virtual Console is like a bigger thing that spans a lot more games and a lot more hardware, whereas this is just kind of basically porting those games in a SNES form to the Switch's online thing. Could be a really cool way to get some old games and maybe some unreleased games. There's been talk about Mother 3 being talked about at E3, but that's still in the offing, and either way, the service is there. Use it if you want to. It won't cost you much, but probably don't expect much either. Number 3, speaking of Nintendo, Pokemon for the Switch may have had a whole bunch of stuff leaked. There's some key art that came out supposedly around the phrase "Let's Go." And around that phrase, people have linked it to all sorts of stuff. But the thing that's come out of it mainly is that it seems to almost be a remaster of Pokemon Red and Blue in a 3D version. This seems pretty great. People are also saying there might be some kind of linking with Pokemon Go. Just generally some rumours and stuff spreading about. Almost certainly going to hear about that one at Nintendo's thing at E3 if there's rumours at this stage.
Yeah, it seems really likely. And I'm fairly certain that there's been the Let's Go thing there. There's been websites that are confirmed to actually be owned by at least the studio that makes Pokemon. So there is some credibility behind the Let's Go name. Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, I think, were the ones that were confirmed.
They are the ones, yeah.
So there's a bit of kind of debate over this and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Some people don't like the idea of it being involved with Pokemon Go.
Mm.
And I can kind of see what they're saying, but I don't think that it's going to be any deep link if there is some link with Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will either be in passing, or that like the catching system in the game will be similar to Pokemon Go, i.e., the way you walk around the game will be like the way you walk around the world with Pokemon Go.
Okay.
Interestingly, though, this is an aside, but it's an aside, but I'm gonna sort of, we've done our predictions at this point, but I think it would be an interesting thing. So every month, Pokemon Go has a thing called Community Day, which is a way that the developers can release shinies into the game that they didn't at launch, and it's been a way of them doing like shiny support for first gen, and a great way of getting communities out and catching together. And the next one is likely to be a Pokemon that's like not one of the starters. If that is announced in the next couple of days to be Eevee, I almost guarantee you that all of this stuff is true, because I think it would just tie everything together really nicely. Anyway, that's an aside. Number 4, Loadout. You remember that game? Yeah, neither did I until Lewis wrote it down in the news. But Loadout has announced that that their servers, their online service, will be coming to an end fairly soon. Loadout was a kind of weird game that came out sort of pre-Overwatch, but post-TF2, where there was that whole multiplayer surge, but nobody really knew what to do with it. It had a kind of Looney Tunes-focused, cartoony aesthetic.
It was very well received on the PC.
It's great fun.
It was a very fun game, but I guess the problem with it is it kind of didn't. It was one of these games that at first didn't launch with monetization and then got monetization, which is often a problem. Because if you don't get it right the very first time you put it up, then that's kind of, you lose half your base.
Yeah.
And maybe it just didn't really change enough. It was one of these games that came out and doesn't change much from its initial kind of form. So it's a bit of a shame because I actually did like it quite a lot. But it is one of these games that you like and go, yeah, I like it. I haven't played it in a year, but I like it.
I find it interesting that you like it. Like, multiplayer isn't really your thing, and this is a super, super multiplayer thing.
I don't know. Certain things can get me into multiplayer, and it was an entertaining game, because it did have this kind of freedom of like, there's not really a right way of playing, if you like.
Mm.
And I think a lot of games have that problem.
I am going to force you to play Overwatch at E3. It's going to be fun. Number 5, Nintendo has put out an ad for a level designer for Zelda. Lots and lots and lots of websites have jumped on this week saying, oh my god, the next Zelda confirmed. Chill your boots a bit. Yeah, there's going to be another Zelda game, but if they're hiring a level designer at this point, it's A, probably a way away, and B, we don't know what platform this could come out on. Nintendo have still been supporting the 3DS, and there has been talk of people being interested in something like A Link Between Worlds or another handheld Zelda that would come out faster and have a sort of faster, more profitable development time for them. So yes, there is another Zelda game somewhere, but don't quite get Breath of the Wild 2 in your head yet. We might have a way to go before there.
It's also worth saying, it took a long time for them to make Breath of the Wild, and it tends to take a long time for them to make Zelda games, so it's not quite something anytime soon.
Yeah, Zelda is Nintendo's GTA. They will make one in a long while, and it will be their focus. Like, I mean, Zelda Breath of the Wild had been developed for a number of years before we heard it at E3, and then it was pushed back 2 or 3 E3s before we got it. So, it's probably going to be a bit, to be honest. But in a good way. That's what you want. Number 6, Capcom is making dollar bills, mainly from the sales of Monster Hunter, which came out earlier this year and was a real sleeper hit. Like, people were kind of sleeping on it when it came out, and the second it came out, it was everywhere. You could not avoid it. It sold 8 million units of Monster Hunter, which is arguably saving them potentially from financial troubles that they've been facing up to that point. Guarantee you see the next Monster Hunter very soon, if not major updates to the current one to make it even more profitable, because people seem to be loving it, which is great.
Yeah, and it's worth saying this is it's expecting a PC release. This is without a PC release, so there is going to be even more sales of it. And yeah, like I think at 8 million, it's probably, at the very least, it's one of the biggest selling games this year. I believe it might even be the best. I'm not quite sure how Far Cry 5's done, but at 8 million, it's significant. Yeah, they were facing financial troubles last year because they released a lot of games that undersold. But yeah, at this rate, I'm sure they're going to be pumping a lot of money into making another one all expensive DLC.
Yeah, you can almost guarantee that there's a producer in Capcom with his eyes doing the Daffy Duck popping out and coming with the dollar signs thing. So, yeah. Number 7, speaking of great sales, Overwatch this week have announced that they have sold 40 million copies of the game. But the reason I wanted to talk about Overwatch this week specifically for a little bit was because they've also, since we've done our predictions episode, announced a cool thing where they've released a skin for Mercy, which is pink, in support of the Breast Cancer Research Fund in America. And sales of that Mercy skin have already generated nearly $10 million of support for that fund. If you didn't know about it, you probably already did. A lot of Overwatch people know. But if you didn't know about it, you can buy it on any platform, and 100% of the proceeds go to the Breast Cancer Research Fund, although there seems to be discussion that a small percentage of the sales on PlayStation go to PlayStation. Not really sure what to make of that, but go support it. It's a great thing, and they've done really, really great stuff for them. Your next story is that Devolver Digital just a day or so ago announced that they are in fact coming back to E3 with another conference. It will be happening on Monday the 11th at 4 a.m. if you're in the UK. It's happening late Sunday in LA. What do we think?
Yeah, so they've come out, I think, and said that this will be a proper show compared to, let's say, last year where it was just a video. Entertaining video, but just a video.
Oh, yeah.
This will be an actual thing with announcements and some like reveals and that kind of thing. Yeah, I'll probably watch it, but it can be pretty tight.
Yeah, it's tough because like E3 has got so many conferences, and this year especially, we are not going to be dry for conferences. I think this is the most we've had in like 4 or 5 years. And Devolver's great, but I don't know that Devolver needs a conference to do what Devolver does, so...
Yeah, you still kind of wonder whether it's the right place, because they are indie games that, they're normally really good indie games from Devolver.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not... I mean, for one thing, they're going to be immediately after Sony, which isn't going to be good for them. So... I don't know.
I mean, I respect Devolver stepping up to the plate of E3 and going, "Hey, look, this is indie games, but we can bullshit on the same level." Last year was very much a we can bullshit on the same level. It was very much a parody of E3, which is like kind of fine, but I find it a bit tiresome last year. Like the first 5 minutes of them going, "Here's a joke," were great, and then the next however long it went on for felt a little bit dragged out. And I hope they kind of learn from that this year. But also, I don't know what they'd bring to a full conference. It's a weird move from Devolver, but it's cool that they're doing it. Number 9, Rage 2 has officially been announced. It's in development between now. It's Avalanche Studios. It's in development between Avalanche Studios and id Tech. id Tech, of course, were responsible for the first Rage, which kind of fell on its ass a little bit. But the second Rage has had a fair amount of support so far. The trailer that came out was super Mad Max-y, a bit Sunset Overdrive-y, and yeah, that franchise is coming back. I'm surprised.
Yeah, me too, really. It didn't really seem like something that warranted, if you like, a sequel. I think there is a thing this generation of kind of going like, what's a dead IP that's completely dead and no one will ever touch it? Let's bring it back. Beyond Good and Evil is kind of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's more that you can think of that are like that. So yeah, it's interesting.
Sorry, you're totally right. Like Beyond Good and Evil, absolutely. Some of the rare stuff like Battletoads and Banjo, absolutely. God of War, like.
Yeah. Something that's kind of done with.
I was fucking with you there, but all right.
Yeah, you're actually kind of right. So
yeah, kind of.
Live with it. It was over. Yeah. So they announced it. They started off with a load of tweets that we kind of talked about before. Lots of cryptic images, and then an initial kind of feeling trailer release. Like a little teaser of it, and kind of giving you the feeling that they're trying to go for, which kind of kind of Sunset Overdrive, punky, funny to some respect. It grinds me up completely the wrong way, I'll be honest with you, but it's the kind of stuff you like.
What is it about that stuff that you don't like? Because I find that really interesting.
I mean, for one thing, appropriating punk culture is generally a thing I don't like anyway.
Appropriating.
Well, I don't know. You know, being in the UK, you know, punk is meant to be this like crazy thing, and these days we look back at punk and go, bright colors and being friendly with everyone, and like, you know, and being like slightly alternative and hip and cool. And it's like actually punk was like this kind of really alternative movement that was about kind of being like nasty and like rough and intentionally like reveling in roughness.
Yeah, I mean, like this is a kind of weird section to go off on the gaming podcast, but hello, welcome to Cultures Up podcast. I kind of feel like UK punk was bathed in the rebellious side of things. UK punk was bathed in the metal, and I mean metal like spikes on jeans kind of thing. It was a giant rebellion to the 60s and the kind of political age of its time. But I think the kind of punk that this is drawing for, like East Bay American punk, is kind of the opposite. It's like East Bay American punk was almost like homeless couture that was turned into music and turned into controlled anarchy in a way.
Okay. I don't know so much about that, I'll be honest with you.
I mean, like,
and maybe that's the problem.
I mean, like East Bay punk is the kind of 924 Gilman Street, Green Day, smothered out happy kind of thing that, you know, last year we went to see like Rancid and Green Day, and I'd say that this trailer has a very kind of Rancid, Green Day, fourth wall breaky.
So my problem with it's like that, but it kind of misses the point, I guess.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
You know, it's kind of like it's punk without the edge, you know, and that kind of grinds me up the wrong way a lot of the time.
Is it that it's like trying to bottle and sell it?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like you I don't know. That grinds me the wrong way, but also it's kind of there's a point where you go like, this is funny because colors and, you know, I don't really like humor in general. No, I do. I love comedy, but I kind of hate that kind of comedy that they're going to be going for, and you kind of feel that it's going to be going for. I don't know. It just rubs me up.
I know what you mean. It's a very fine line to tread, and when you get it wrong, you get like the kind of not another teen movie bollocks Melissa McCarthy Saints Row stuff that misses the mark entirely and is just kind of infantile. But I think when you get it right, and I think what makes it right is the world you build it in. I've been thinking about doing for a while a little video essay thing on, specifically I'd like to do a little video essay on what makes Deadpool great is what makes Saints Row terrible. And basically the core of it is, if you build that kind of humor on a core that's bad, you're like building a bad apple onto a bad apple core. But if you have a core that's brilliant and very vibrant and different, or gameplay systems that work, or a story that's a really good foundation, the humor you build onto that just kind of fits with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't all, but just yeah. No, I guess some other additional stuff on this. Yeah. It's being made in Avalanche's engine, which is a little bit of a worry. There was hope that it would be made in id Tech's engine because they're the people behind Doom, and obviously that would be a really good engine for the FPS feel that we need, the first-person shooter feel. And Avalanche's engine made the Mad Max game, which is great for open world, but not necessarily good for that kind of focused gameplay.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. We don't quite know like what id Tech's involvement is. They've kind of sold it as Doom plus Mad Max, and I wonder whether it's going to really go and be like that when we see more of it.
I think it will be really Mad Max, to be honest. I think one of the really unique things about it, especially when the gameplay came out, is I think it really nails that everything kind of cobbled together and repurposed Fury Road aesthetic and tone.
I mean, it's fairly clear. I'll be honest with you, like to me, and it's fairly clear this started off as a Mad Max game.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think like it's either that it started off as a Mad Max game and they didn't want anything. Mad Max people didn't want anything to do with it, or that Bethesda saw them make the Mad Max game and said, "Ooh, that would be a really good way of repurposing Rage without having to do a lot to it."
Yeah, maybe.
Either way, like I'm really excited for it. I watched the gameplay trailer again recently, and I'm more excited than I was the first time I saw it.
Yeah, you were a bit sour on it the first time.
I thought it looked a bit standard with that tone. Like I love the kind of loud colors, loud noises, punky tone. I think that's great. But then when you pair it with something that looks like Destiny, it's like, what's the fucking point? But having gone back and watched it, I actually think there's a bit more nuance there that will become clear as people play it, rather than in like a 30-second trailer. So,
yeah, I'm slightly worried that we're going to find out it is a Destiny.
It could well be.
There is a lot of talk about. I don't know. It's really subtle things, like they've called it a first-person shooter verse, and that really worries me because it just makes it sound like it's going to be this kind of multiplayer universe, kind of like open world style sandbox game.
Yeah.
Which is unfair to necessarily go off of that. I think there was another quote that I can't quite remember that kind of also gave me that feeling. No, so I'll be interested to see what it is.
I mean, of all the games that Bethesda have that could be a Destiny, Rage actually makes a lot of sense. And I mean, if they do it right, they do it right. So I think I'd rather see the IP come back, try being a Destiny and succeed than not come back at all.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one to watch. All right, number 10. This is a kind of sad one. Boss Key, which is Cliff Bleszinski's former development studio, has been closed after the failed release of Lawbreakers and more recently their battle royale game Radical Heights. It kind of seems like Radical Heights was a kind of last chance to dance for them, because it came out and then literally a week and a bit later the studio is like shuttered and they're saying that the systems are going to stay online for a bit, but probably not all that long. I think the sadder thing here, though, people have like up and down thoughts about Cliff Bleszinski, but I think the sadder thing here is that he said he's taking a step back from video games for a bit to like be with his family and reflect. And like Cliff has a very dude bro macho style of video games, but when he gets them right, he really fucking nails them. And that first 3 Gears of War trilogy is a perfect example of that. So I think it's a shame that the closing of this studio is for somebody to step away, but I hope he comes back in a renewed sense.
Yeah, and like I think it's worth saying that like I think sometimes our community can be a bit toxic on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's many people reveling in like how Cliff's been like, ended, and that's not really what we should be doing, because at the end of the day, the more studios and the more people involved in gaming, the better,
Mm-hmm.
And this is, people are going to lose their jobs, or have lost their jobs at this point. And that's it's sad, and it means we kind of get less from these people. It's a bit of a shame as well, because Radical Heights actually did get some traction. There was a lot of people saying that it had potential, but it was still like extreme early access is what they called it. It was something that, at this stage didn't even have all of its textures yet. But it was something that people were saying they'd be interested in playing it when it got further down that line. So it's a shame, but I assume that they've made a decision based on like, we have the money to make it run for this long. If we don't get enough money, we won't be able to survive, and they didn't get enough money.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I hate saying that gaming culture is toxic, because we kind of like it's kind of bollocks to go out to the gaming community and say, hey, please listen to our podcast, and then at the same time slate them. But you're right, there are an unfortunate amount of people kind of reveling in the fact that Cliff went from Gears, where he was kind of a bit amplified as a producer. He was almost Randy Pitchford-like in the way he had this kind of voice and echo chamber. And people have sort of reveled in his lack of success here. And it is a great shame, because if nothing else, he's a really talented producer. Like, clearly you can't make a trilogy like that and not be. And it would be a real shame to lose any kind of talent from the video gaming industry. So yeah, big shame there. And if anybody from Boss Key is listening at any point ever, we really hope you landed on your feet, or land on your feet, because the world deserves more developers. All right, number 11, a sequel to Super Hot is taking place, and it's going to be set in Japan. I think this is great. Super Hot's really good fun. You should go play it if you get the chance. It's the most innovative shooter I've ever played. But I think specifying that a sequel's going to be set in Japan is a very odd thing to do. If you understand why.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like when I was playing through Super Hot, the thing I was never like is the thing I was never thinking is, oh, this is clearly set in blah or blah. Like
right,
I'd be more than happy for them to just be like Super Hot 2 and that'd be fine.
Yeah, no, okay, I do see what you mean. You lost me for a bit, but now I get that. Yeah, and I think like I look forward to playing like this new version.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they'll be able to make it an interesting setting, but you're right, of course, that it's not necessarily something that was tied to a setting anyway. But it should be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. It would be cool if it like maybe affected the story. That would be kind of cool. Because like I guess the story of Super Hot, not spoilers really, but if you don't want any details, don't listen for like 10 seconds. The story of Super Hot is very tied to like Western surveillance. So I guess you could play with like that. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, number 12. Last week we put out our predictions episode, which was lovely. Thank you for your response. I've racked the first point on the board already with Rage 2, although it's a half point because it doesn't come out this year. But in the same week that I rack up the first half point, all the points are shat on because there's no Borderlands 3 at E3. Confirmed by Gearbox, and it pretty much is confirmed at this point because there was a press release along with an earnings call that made it clear that whatever was going to be their major title released in the next year has now been pushed to the year after. So Borderlands 3 is probably more like next year, which is a real shame.
Yeah, and you've really got to kind of wonder what's going on at Gearbox. Like, I don't know, they've been a bit weird, I guess, recently. Yeah, I hope that they're kind of working it out now, and that this game is the reason they're pushing it back isn't say strategical, but actually for like good reason. That this will be increasing the scope of the game or something along those lines.
Part of me thinks that it's to avoid Red Dead.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Although it means pushing it back a long time, so the only way I could see this happening is if it comes out in like April, because like it's been pushed to the next financial year, which means that technically it could come out any time between April next year and the year after. But I still don't think it's as far away as we think it is. Like, there's just, if it is as far away as I think it is, then they've really shat the bed on Shadow announcing it early. Like, there's so much information and assets out in the wild about it. I really think it's closer than we think it is, but that can mean a lot at this point, especially with the delay. So I don't know.
I hope so, because I do worry about Gearbox. I think they're one of the ones that had quite a nice success a while ago, but for a while now, you know, they did the Bulletstorm remaster, they did Battleborn, and I think they did Duke Nukem 3D like remaster as well. So they've been kind of on interesting things. They haven't really done anything too great, especially when they've got the fire. What do you call it? Fire in the hole. I can't remember. But they've got like the chance of success with continuing Borderlands, and they seem to have been kind of hiding from it for a while. So hopefully, when we do see it, it is something grand and amazing.
I mean, they're not going to struggle for the next couple of games, even if the Borderlands games are shite. Like, the Borderlands 2 sold so well, especially with the expectations against it, that studio will be fine. It's just about making the game good. And I kind of, if anything, I'm more confident that they're delaying, because like, if they don't delay and the game just comes out, I'd be kind of worried that 2K are pushing for sales. In a way, this is a very good thing. There's so many reasons that this could be for. Like, there could easily be we're adding a bunch of features, including a battle royale, to help the sales thing. There could easily be it just wasn't ready thing. It could be that, like, I don't know, Randy Pitchford wants to like redo the PR because he's kind of been fucking that up recently with the way he's talked on Twitter and stuff. It's a very weird situation they find themselves in, because the game is so expected, but also not as expected as, like, Randy Pitchford literally compared it to Half-Life 3 this week on Twitter. And it's like, yeah, Borderlands is expected, but at the same time, like, it's not Half-Life 3 by any stretch of the imagination yet. And if it ever gets to that, they'll have shot themselves in the foot so badly that it won't be worth it. Like if any game is at Half-Life 3 levels of expected, just don't bother, because even when Half-Life 3 comes out, it won't sell what the delay will have made it sort of worth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I do think you're right in that kind of sense. Like, I think maybe the comparison to Half-Life 3 is probably a little bit, what would be the right word?
Tone deaf.
Well, no, that as well, but also kind of like overhyping Borderlands series. You know, while it is obviously a great series that's done well, it's not Half-Life levels.
Yeah, I'd agree. And like, I guess within that within the Borderlands community, because there is still quite a healthy Borderlands community, playing 2 and updating it. Like, yeah, within that community, it probably is. But like, within any community for a single game, it will always be. Like, within the Pokemon Go community, Pokemon Go 2 is Half-Life 3, but it's not anywhere else. So
yeah.
All right, the next one. I can't remember what number we're on. The Bulletstorm studio is working with Sony. SE? Square Enix, sorry. Is working with Square Enix on a new AAA shooter. Cool.
Yeah, that's all there is, I'm afraid.
It's good stuff, though. The guys who made Bulletstorm, that's People Can't Fly, or People Can Fly, right?
Yes, it is.
People Can Fly did really, really good stuff. They also made Gears of War Judgment, which was a pretty good game. Bulletstorm's kind of respected as one of those underdog.
Well, so Bulletstorm's a weird one. Bulletstorm is a game that probably had some of the best shooting mechanics and some of the best kind of, mix of kind of fun with shooting. Its style was very much something that we're going to see in other games, pretty likely. It had this kind of, challenges that would be throw someone in the air and shoot them into a cactus or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be like the way you'd play the game, would be this mix of challenges with different weapons. And that was something that was really kind of innovative about it. Anyway, and it's a real shame that it didn't do better, to be honest, because it is quite a good game and it does stand up in many senses. I'd be tentatively excited to see what they could do with a shooter with maybe a bit more direction from Square.
Yeah, I think People Can Fly haven't put out something in a little bit, and I look forward to seeing what this is. There's a very, very talented development team there, and Square Enix know how to do marketing when they get it right. So this could be a very, very good mix. And finally, and this is a really interesting one, No Man's Sky, a game that really hasn't been talked about in a year and a half, is firstly coming to Xbox, which is a good thing because exclusivity sucks. But it's also getting multiplayer a year and a half after people were kind of asking for it. Sean Murray went on Inside Xbox to confirm this. Apparently you can work with small and large groups, but there were no numbers put to this, so nobody is entirely sure kind of what it means or what it will actually look like. No Man's Sky finally getting multiplayer, though. That's a good thing.
The real question is, do you believe Sean Murray?
That's cool.
It's kind of deserved. So this is really kind of, it's exciting to see. I mean, I think it's more proof that this game should have been an early access title as opposed to what it was. I think one of the big problems that it had on launch was that it was kind of much like Sea of Thieves in some ways. It's this game that has a lot of promise but isn't there yet. And it released at full price as well, which I didn't think did too well for it. But there's been a lot of talk about it being a lot better now, and there is a community behind that game and that are very into it. I think they need to do some sort of relaunch at any rate. It's one of those titles. It's one of those things like Siege where you need to kind of come out and be like, yeah, this is like a completely different game now. Mm-hmm. And I think multiplayer is definitely something that you could kind of rally around and go, yeah, this is 10 times the game it was when it launched.
Multiplayer could be, I think, a very, very good thing for this game or a very, very bad thing. I think the people who like it have probably gained a liking for the mechanics enough at this point that it it's been a year and a half. If there's no multiplayer, people aren't holding on for multiplayer, I imagine. So it's going to bring in an influx of new players, I think. And I think it depends on how they pick it up, whether the game survives or not.
Yeah, okay.
If it doesn't, I've got to imagine that will probably mean the end of the road for Hello Games, which is a great shame because They are now one of the more popular developers in the UK, and that would be a real kick to the scene. But if it does strive, I kind of get the feeling we'll see a lot more No Man's Sky soon. Because it could, like, you've compared it on when we've talked to stuff like Minecraft and so on and so forth, which has this kind of core base set of good mechanics, and then it's what's added to that makes it. And I could totally see it working like that. It's just a matter of, is the support there after the fact?
It's also one of those games which, I talked about before, it's something that probably should have seen an initial release that was like, £15, and then maybe raised as the features were added. A bit like what Minecraft did. Minecraft started off much cheaper than it is now, I think.
It's 17.
At least when it properly launched. Was that?
I think it's 17 at the minute.
Okay. Well, it was a lot cheaper than when it initially launched. I think when it initially launched on the Xbox One, it was more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so its initial PVC release was a lot lower. And as they added features, they increased the price of it. And yeah, I think No Man's Sky, I don't know if it did badly, but it wasn't received well because of the fact that people were expecting a lot more.
Yeah.
It's a lot like Sea of Thieves. And I think you're right in the sense, I said you're right to something that this was like a month ago now, but Sea of Thieves will also probably see this big kind of improvement, and hopefully we'll be in a year's time talking about it and going, oh, it's a really good game.
See, but I kind of think these are two sides of a different coin. I think Sony, and I'm not trying to be ratting on Sony, I know it sounds like I am, but Sony really bungled No Man's Sky for exactly the same reasons that Microsoft didn't with Sea of Thieves, because what Microsoft needed was a giant IP that pushes them forward, and they didn't, that's not what Sea of Thieves is, but as a result, it's had more success than I really think anybody expected it to. It has sold fairly well. It does have a healthy community, and Rare are supporting it really well. That is a very positive model for a game. Whereas on the flip side, No Man's Sky was treated as this huge exclusive IP that Sony were gonna, push forward and really prioritize. And by doing so, the expectations of it were so large, they would never live up to that. So I think they really are two sides of a similar coin, and I hope that they both progress in the same way, because the development talent is there behind both of them.
Yeah, I think I have a slightly different opinion on it, but it's mostly that it's still not promoting Sony. No. It's mostly that I think Sony kind of chucked it out the door in a sense, and it went it wasn't the game people were expecting. It didn't review well, and they kind of just went, okay, well, we're done with it. And it's quite clear that Microsoft are kind of going, it hasn't reviewed well still. But we are going to kind of keep mentioning it and keep bringing it up and being like, yeah, this is a game that's going to be changing over time. And that's probably got a lot to do with its fact that it's a first party as opposed to a third party studio.
Yeah.
Second party studio. But yeah.
Yeah. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is all the news that we have for the last couple of weeks, so that we sort of all caught up with all the big stuff. I don't think there's anything else really that we need to talk about. So this week
there always is. We always find out just up.
The worst bit is we record this so much more dynamically than we've ever used to do. We used to pre-record episodes literally months in advance. And now we'll record the day before we put it out. And almost inevitably we record and something happens hours later and we just miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sort of for now, I just kind of want to talk to my big friend here, my big friend Lewis, because we've been doing this for nearly
big friend,
big boy.
All right.
We've been doing this for 4 years, and it's taken us a lot longer to reach 100 episodes than most people. So I don't know. I kind of the show's changed a lot. We started. Our topic of the week this week is us, kind of, because we've done and changed a lot of stuff. The show started 4 years ago as a radio show that we were sort of always intending to be a podcast, but we had to get it on a radio station to start it off. And we ended up sort of being dropped by that radio station and picking it up ourselves. And for the first kind of 3 years, because we were all in uni, we really had to focus on EGX stuff and indie dev stuff, and whenever we could get together and find something, because we were all in very disparate, separate parts of the country, and because internet just sucks wherever you go. So
Yeah, we had to get together, didn't we, every now and then,
Yeah.
and we would record quite a few episodes in one go, just to kind of keep us going.
well, we tried to, but we were like,
Yeah, we never.
because we were planning. So what we would do is every like couple of months we'd say, hey, we probably need to do some stuff. We'd all travel back to our hometown, play some games, and try and record. But like, because
Yeah.
we hadn't done it as often as we really should have, we probably weren't as good as we should have been in picking out a topic that will last in a few months' time. Like, I think probably now we'd be better at saying we need an episode in 3 months. What can we talk about? But at the time, we were still like kind of in the weeds of how podcasts work, and so we didn't really know what to record or what to talk about, how long an episode should be, what we were changing, and so we very rarely actually had content being made.
It's worth saying as well that we got together and we would play video games, and at some point in the day it would be like 8 o'clock, and we'd be like, oh, actually, maybe we should do this recording.
Yeah.
And so what would be like 10 episodes, oh, I don't know, 10. What would be like kind of recording like 3 or 4 episodes would be end up being recording 1 episode, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think there has been times we got together and didn't record anything.
Yeah, and then we would say like, okay, well, we'll get together like in a couple of weeks and do the same, and then we'd record like 1 episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a lot. We are very different, and the show is very different than when we started. When we started podcasts, especially YouTube podcasts, were in their infancy, and we kind of really fucking dropped the ball by not doing regular content. But they were really in their infancy, and we started off on a radio station that dropped us quite quickly, which was fun. But a lot's changed, and a lot has changed in like our lives as well. Like when we started this, we were all uni students. I think just gone first year, right?
For you, yeah, I was still in school.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh shit! No, you wait.
Well, it depends. At the start, yeah. At the very start, I was still in school.
Were you? Yeah, but you were like on the cusp of leaving, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
It was mostly during my final summer that we
made
did that
me feel
way.
very uncomfortable for a second there.
Yeah, you're old.
Yeah, like a lot's changed. Like we've all now graduated uni. By quite a bit, to be honest. You're the most recent graduate of all of us.
Yeah, I'm just starting work, just starting to become an adult.
But that's because you did like a giantly long course that never ended.
Yeah, basically.
We now live in 3 very, very different cities. Also, we were going to try and get Loz on the show, but he's going off to Germany and is always very busy. And getting the internet in Glasgow is like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, but there's no hat, and the rabbit's like rabid. So it's very difficult to do. But yeah, we all now live in 3 very disparate cities. Peter, who started the show with us, still lives in MK. He now does different stuff. Lives in a different part of MK, has a different job. At the time, he was studying in a college as well. So yeah, life's changed quite a lot.
Yeah, things have kind of come, we all started in the same place and we've ended up in very different places, as you say.
Yeah.
We kind of spread out. And obviously that's meant that we've kind of had to go onto Skype and using this. And that's been very much, it was something you didn't really want for a while, and it was something I was kind of pushing.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that I convinced you in some sense that it was a good idea, because it was something that we hadn't really recorded an episode in like, I don't even know, like a year or something.
5 months.
Yeah, it was. Oh, it's not only that then. That's not too bad.
Now,
but
hold on, 5 months, but that was because before that was EGX.
yeah, exactly. So like we hadn't really recorded stuff in a long time, and it became clear that like unless we started doing something like this, we just weren't going to make episodes. Because we could only really see each other. Yeah, well, I mean, we can see each other more, but in terms of like kind of things that we wanted to kind of go see, there wasn't too much we could do apart from EGX and E3.
Yeah.
And so, we started with this, and that's ended up being a very good thing.
Yeah, it really did. I was stubborn about it because
audio quality. Ooh.
Yeah, one of the things, and I don't mean to blow our horn on it, but one of the things we have always been good at when we were recording together was audio quality, because we could really dial it in and make sure it was good to listen to. But actually, you were totally right. Like, we can still dial in audio quality like this, and we've made it better. And and it's better to listen to people be on topic and talking about good stuff. So yeah, you kind of saved the show there a little bit.
Yeah, yes. I mean, you mentioned topics, and I think that was obviously one of our things was that we still kind of have trouble coming up with topics unless something's happened that week. But when we were doing it beforehand, we tried to be kind of relevant, but also relevant for the next 3 months. And that was something that was very difficult and never really quite worked. Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit.
Yeah, like sometimes it's quite like producing weekly now. We can try and be a little bit more relevant and a bit more interesting. So like when a big game comes out, we can talk about it more clearly. Like when God of War comes out, I can surprise you with a quiz. But like E3 predictions are a lot easier to do because we are in more constant contact with the gaming industry and the way we talk about it. So that's a lot healthier way to do it. Big kind of controversies or big stories in games we can actually share and formulate a good opinion on. Like the loot boxes from like a year ago, that's something we could have never really done beforehand.
But yeah, it has kind of changed the show a bit because you'll find that in the old days we kind of had the most vague topics, or the most kind of, we had quite a lot of philosophical topics that were kind of like, should gaming be like this, or do we think games, And I think that's something that's kind of changed a lot now that we've been able to be more relevant. I think, admittedly, we obviously have less. Law's contributed a lot to those, and obviously with him not being able to be in it as much, we kind of lose. We've kind of lost some of that element. Because he was good on the philosophy side of things.
Yeah.
But it has, it's been very positive. We've been able to be lots more interesting and relevant to things that are going on.
I think we've kind of found a bit of a specialism in talking about the business of the industry. Like in your day to day, you're like you're a sort of data person, a mathematician, so you kind of understand not the financial side, so to speak, but like more the sort of inner workings of how you keep a business running. And in my day-to-day, I work part in education and part in media production. So I know I'd say I know the ins and outs of how making a game actually becomes a reality, what marketing is like, what the ins and outs of that are, and where you can see something beginning and failing. And so between us, I think we're actually quite good at taking a situation like Loadout, for example, this week, where we can go, oh, Loadout's going offline. But the reason is because it was launched at this time in the wrong place in a certain market and this, that, the other. And I do kind of feel like we've got that over a couple of other, podcasts at our level where we can talk in a special way about this kind of stuff. And we're massive fans of games, and, life gets in the way, especially now that we're all fucking big, boring, grizzly adults with flats and partners and stuff. But we do still find a lot of time to play games. And if we were on the same platform, we play a lot of games together. And we're going to look into streaming at the minute and that kind of stuff. So we, it's obvious on YouTube. You say, I'm an enthusiast. Fucking everyone is. But I think we're kind of an enthusiast who can talk with some expertise on the stuff, even though we've never been all that close to gaming as professionals.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things I guess we have in some aspects is that we are enthusiasts, but we're not enthusiasts that are getting money off of this. So it's not like
I mean, we'd love to. Like, please.
Yeah, I mean, we would if we could. But yeah, it's not something that we kind of get money from. So in that sense, we can kind of talk about it and not feel like we're forced to put content out.
Yeah.
Although we have been pretty regular, so that's good. But yeah, so we're not because we're not forced to put stuff out. It's something that means we can kind of talk about what just interests us and what's kind of going on in gaming without feeling like we're kind of forced to. And you are right in the sense that we have some nice skills together between us that mean we're kind of able to analyze stuff quite well. I'm probably going to be less good at that soon because of my job, but I don't know. We'll see.
I disagree. I think you're actually going to be better at it.
Yeah, I'll learn more. I might get access to secret statistics.
Ooh. But like, with all seriousness, like I actually do think you're going to get better at it because my day job is I work for a university. I work for Birmingham City University where I graduated, and having gone back, and I'll be very careful about what I say, but having gone back, the kind of reality of how any kind of industry works, I feel like I'm a bit more tuned into and a bit less glazy-eyed to. And between us, we're a healthy level of cynical already. So I'm fascinated as to when you become like the strictest of professionals, what that will do. But I mean, like, me and you go back a while with doing stuff like together. We had an ill-fated band for a number of years.
Yeah. The band was interesting.
It was fun.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and I think like we've got a long history of doing stuff to kind of make sure we meet up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of really kept our friendship together. Not just that, but obviously there was kind of times when we could have just kind of parted ways, and in some sense we stayed together because we've done stuff together.
Yeah, like I think we've always been quite good at banding together and found a way of expressing either emotions or opinions or views or something, like putting something out into the ether. And I kind of think like you are trying to go into the area that you're going into, but when we were younger, especially when all this started, even before that, we were kind of not sure, and so I think just putting stuff out is a really good way of doing that positively. I think we've always been quite good at that, so yeah.
Even if we weren't great musically, in many senses it was on me. I never practiced enough.
I mean, I think we were both. I think we both pushed each other to put it nicely.
Yeah, we were both semi-capable.
We played, I think, 4 gigs, and the most we ever got paid for them was a bacon butty that was going spare.
Hey, you were over the moon when we got that. You were like, this was like, you thought you'd made it into the big leagues.
I like bacon.
Free bacon, sandwich, and you're like, yeah, this is what it's like to be in the big leagues.
Right, okay, so fuck it, seeing as we're going in depth on ourselves, do you want to know when I really thought, oh, we've got this? Years and years ago, before we started the show, years and years ago, one of the first gigs we ever went to, because we're quite fond of a good gig. We've seen some incredible bands, but one of the first gigs we ever went to, and probably still my favourite gig of all time, was we saw Green Day at Wembley, at the still fairly new Wembley Stadium, and they had Frank Turner and Joan Jett, and it was literally a religious experience for me. But that year they were launching Green Day Rock Band. And they and they had a little stand on the walkway to the show.
Don't talk about this.
No, it was great. Like we stepped up as a band and played Holiday at the stand, and and there was actually a bit of a crowd, and people actually like sang along and sort of did all the back and forth crowd stuff, and that was really nice. And I thought, oh, this is the best thing ever. And then we played 2 charity shows in Milton Keynes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting.
Oh, dude, that was the best gig though.
Yeah, no, it was. This is kind of personal now.
Yeah.
So we had a very long friendship, and I think like, this has kept us together in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, it's we're cool and we're close and we're fuck off. We're cool and we're close with Loz now, probably in a different way because he's gone off into a different industry and works in a different part of the country, and his life is totally crazy. And we're cool with Pete, but like I play games with Pete on a regular basis, but we probably don't talk about the industry and stuff as much as we once did. But also, like, we've always had strong friendships, I think, with like each other's family and each other's personal lives and each other's partners and non-partners and whatever has changed over the years. And so I think like this is a really lovely way to get together. But like if all my audio equipment died tomorrow and the show ended, I still think I'd like to like check in every, for an hour on a Sunday.
Of course.
Yeah. And like, it sounds kind of cheesy and producery to plug it, but like genuinely that's why I'm so excited for E3. Because E3, like if you're a gamer, E3 every year is like super exciting. It's the time when, big announcements happen, big surprises happen, that franchise, Crash Bandicoot comes back. It's amazing. But also for us, it was a real touchstone every year of like, I really haven't seen these guys in basically a year. Let's sit down at stupid o'clock in the morning and just fucking be nerds together. And I think like now, this will be the second year that I've done it as a professional renting a flat in a city. This will be the first time that you'll have done it not as a student Like next year, I don't know where I'll be. It will change again, but that's the excitement of it. And I think week and a half into June, regardless of where we are, that's like a lovely little tradition that we have.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to get together and kind of hang out, play games, and mix alcohol and energy drinks.
And go for sorry, go for pizza meals beforehand and piss off waitresses.
Oh yeah, good times. Yeah, yeah, I look forward to it very much. And yeah, you're right. It's kind of weird to plug it, but it's something that we both really enjoy.
And I think as a result, like the energy that we have in it, and the rest of the year, the show's good. I think. Like no, like for the first like couple of years we did this, we didn't really listen back to it. We didn't edit it. We just got it in the can and put it out because that was how we worked. And having now had to go back and edit it and make it better, I actually think we've worked a lot better, and we've done like. God, this sounds really facetious, but I do think we've actually done some really cool stuff and told some really cool stories. I applied this week for an internship with a fairly well-known games journalism site, and I don't think I've got a chance in hell. But if I do get it, the reason will be because I specifically mentioned that like we've used this as a platform to talk to like developers who released one game and went nowhere. But like if nothing else, their story will be there with us. Like there's indie games at the minute that we talked to last year in EGX that are posting stuff and probably aren't going to go anywhere. But for the 5 or 6 people who play that game, there will always be that interview online. And I'm really proud that we did stuff with that we've done stuff and will continue to do stuff, I hope, with Special Effect. I want us to do more charity stuff. I want us to do this, that, and the other. But I do think we've got a lot better over the last like year and a half. And I think we're only like we've had better response from people. We've picked up more listeners. We've become a healthier thing. But E3 is a totally different monster because, like, at 4 o'clock in the morning, slightly drunk off your mind on actual alcohol and Crash Bandicoot, you just can't make the same kind of show. And so I almost plug it as a kind of hear us at our best and our worst at the same time because that's why we love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you've listened at all during the last 100 episodes and all the other stuff and all the mini reviews we've put out and the Overwatch content and the special effects and the EGX stuff, just thank you because it's been lovely. And I can't wait for the next 100, which will hopefully not take 4 years. And yeah, just thanks because you've made it a big part of our lives for 4 years and a really fun part of our lives. And yeah, we look forward to changing with you as we go.
Yeah, exactly.
If you do like this or any of the other 100 shows, or whatever it is that drew you here, if you have any kind of positive feeling to what you've heard here, please feel free to show us some support. Thank you so much to all the people who did that last time. We hope you're along for the ride and enjoying it. And yeah, you can find us at Games Upcast on everything: Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, anything else that we post on Twitch and Mixer, come E3. Subscribe, like iTunes and YouTube, whatever you prefer. We post at 6:30 Monday every week and much earlier that day, so you can catch it on your way to work or lunchtime or whenever you prefer. Thanks very much. And until episode 200, the game is up.
I mean, 101, surely.
No, I'm never going to say that again.
Yeah.